So as a DevOps person, a lot of the time we're dealing with code, and code usually starts off as text files. We had that discussion about files and folders in the first video. So you can usually, there are many user programs that we can use to write code. So the most basic on a Windows computer is Notepad. So we can go in here, Notepad. And as you can see, you can write a bit of code here. If you were writing some PowerShell, you could do console. No. Anyway, you could start to write some code like this and then save it out. But the code itself, it's not, the window itself doesn't give you much to. There are lots of quality of life features that are missing from Notepad. It's purely just a text editor. So what we can do is there are other tools available, obviously, but Visual Studio Code seems to be the one that a lot of people gravitate towards. So what we're going to do is we're going to install Visual Studio Code, and then I'm going to point out some key things about it. Okay. So again, let's go into our browser. Let's install Visual Studio Code, or let's go and grab Visual Studio Code from the download. So I've put Visual Studio Code in Google. I can find the Visual Studio Code website, and I can download it for Windows. Download starts. It's quite a small download. And then we double click on it to see the installer. So we can go, I accept, click on all of the defaults. We'll create a desktop icon here because that way it's straight available for us. Wait for the install to complete. And there we go, Visual Studio Code. Now what we'll do is we'll launch it from here, but here you can see the desktop icon got created. Okay, so let's close down file, close folder. So this is the window you first get shown. You can open individual files. What I tend to find is showing opening code up in folders, because a lot of code comes in folders, so lots of files within a folder structure. So I would usually go open folder. So let's do that. So let's see if there's so I put a lot of folder source code in my source folder. Let's create a temporary one here, new folder, VS Code demo. Let's select that folder and then open it. And here we can see the Visual Studio Code windows change. It's asking for permission as well. Does it trust my folders? So it's trying to be secure and ask you whether or not we need to run in restricted mode. Obviously, I've just created it and I trust me, so I'm going to trust the authors of all files in my parent folder at the source level. So everything under here will be trusted. And you can see that the window's changed here. We've got some Copilot stuff on the right, which we'll go through another day. I'm going to close that down for now because we're not interested in that. But down the left here, you have a menu bar. The Explorer window is kind of like your files and folders view. The search window gives you the capability to search through all those files and folders. Source controls where we're starting to think about Git, source control, source code management. That'll be another video. Also, we can run our code inside the Visual Studio Code environment and we can debug it. We can install extensions which make things nicer to interact with your code within the Visual Studio Code ecosystem, and that's the thing that's most powerful about this. And then again, another chance to open Copilot. So if I wanted to create files, I could either go File, New File, or I can go here and I can go New File. So I'm going to create a README. .md, and then I'm going to, because I know the structure of a README file in Markdown. Again, there's another video we'll come back to. This is a new readme.md. Hi there, hello world. Now, Markdown has a special property in that it can get rendered. So if I were to go open preview, now I can see the rendered version of Markdown. It just basically converts it into a nicer formatted document. But at the end of the day, the MD file, Markdown, is just text. So it's a bit like very basic code. You can see that Visual Studio here has got a number of different things along the bottom as well. Here is if it can figure out what language you're writing out, it will start to color your text so that, you know, in this particular instance, Markdown header lines are in blue, and then normal lines are in white here. But there are loads of different code types we can stick in here, and it's all designed to make the code more readable. The colors are interpreted at the point at which things are loaded or written. They're not stored in the text files themselves. So like if I were to create a simple.javascript file, I can label it simple.js. It is just a text file. And then we get this capability where console.log, a Visual Studio Code is automatically kind of trying to be helpful and suggest things that you might want to do. And you can see there that it's starting to put lots of different colors in. So this is the color for a string representation. This shows you where your brackets end and finish. You can see the kind of the very basics of object orientation programming. I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, so there's you know, and you've got these tab windows here, so you can flip between all your bits of code. Something I often do as well is I just check to make sure auto save is on, just to make sure that all the code is right. Okay, the one thing that isn't appearing on here just yet, and this is because this repository isn't set up to be using Git here. The bottom left, if you are starting to use source control management in Git, there's a bit here that would appear that shows would show your the branch that you're on, but we'll go through that when we talk about it. Okay. Useful extensions, they're just basically discoverable. We'll probably start to use the Python one in a bit, maybe a bit of Docker eventually, but right now, that's about the basics of Visual Studio Code. Okay, and then we can just close down the window like that.